Thank you for staying with us. It's time now to take a look at stories making headlines on the front page of Nigerian newspapers. And I begin with the Blueprint newspaper. The major story here says fuel subsidy removal. Nigeria records over 1 trillion naira monthly revenue inflow. That's the federal government speaking. Says recovery efforts will bounce economy back to stability. PMS Nupeng denies planned protest, warns against panic buying. And we move now to another story at the down corner here. Cleric set to smash Guinness World Record with 60-hour marathon salmon. Currency in circulation hits 2.99 trillion naira. NSIA to drive Nigeria's energy transition with $500 million. Our human material resources advantage over others, Tinubu tells investors at the Compact with the Africa Summit. There, we brought you that report. It says African countries have larger energy potentials than Germany. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is speaking, and the picture here is from left to right. President Bola Tinubu, Côte d'Ivoire President Alassane Ouattara, President Farouk Gnassingbé of Togo, some other presidents here represented at the Compact with Africa Summit. That was attended by the president. At the top corner, we have Western democracy not working in Africa. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo saying this, and we had that discussion earlier. WCD, 17.6 million children will be born into hunger this year, as IC is saying. CEPLA to conclude $1.3 billion ExxonMobil asset by federal government within. To the Voice of Liberty now, the major story here is looking at the matter of fuel subsidy removal. 1.45 trillion naira saved from subsidy removal, federal government reveals. And Western democracy not working for Africa, former President Olusegun Obasanjo is speaking. And Kaduna banditry, we're under siege. Lere Kauru local government communities raises an alarm. Digital content, NFVCB vows to sanction streaming services violating laws. Must have been imagination of Nigerians Buhari on Cabal's hijacking his government. That must be from that interview where he mentioned that he wasn't missing governance as much. At the top corner, party supporters planning violence in Kano, police warn. Lagos criticism as Sanwo-Olu approved 3.75 billion naira for perfume funds. This story has been generating reactions for some time now. Now, judgments sacking Kano Plateau governors should be reviewed. Senior advocate Femi Falana is speaking. We'll move now to the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Western liberal democracy not working in Africa. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo saying this. Another story here says Supreme Court to hear Lagos Ekiti suit against federal government, 34 other states over lottery control, March the 13th. Obaseki to lead Delta Ondo Ekiti to repurchase shares, reorganize BEDC to solve electricity crisis. 110 million children in Nigeria at risk, more vulnerable to climate change. UNICEF is saying this. Subsidy removal, federal government records over 1 trillion naira monthly revenue inflow. Wale Edun. Economic recovery, editors Confab wants federal government to reduce deafening anxiety amongst Nigerians. Impeachment, Akeredolu Ayedatiwa supporters plan protest in Ondo. Highly educated workforce, Nigeria's biggest advantage, Tinubu tells investors in Germany at the Compact for West Africa Summit. Now to the Daily Trust newspaper. The major story here says Western democracy not working for Africa. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo is saying this. And the writers here, Nigerians gradually losing faith, says Atiku. No trust between leaders, followers, fire me. A politician's attitude, the problem. Lamido Sanusi speaking. Ex-president lacks moral ground to pontificate on democracy, Sislak is saying. Now, reps go after 83 MDAs over 184 billion naira COVID-19 fund mismanagement. Furore over vacancies, appointment of federal permanent secretaries. Plot to remove me targeted at Kwankwaso's vision, Kanu governor saying. A subsidy removal, federal government records over 1 trillion naira monthly revenue inflow. And the story about Governor Sanwo-Olu being under fire over 108 million naira vegetables, Tinubu's portrait is also featuring prominently here. 110 million children at risk of climate change, UNICEF is saying. Why Niger withdrew MNJTF, that's the Joint Task Force, troops from border with Nigeria. All right, you find all the details of the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust. To the Nation newspaper now. Tinubu to Simons speed up investment in power, rail. President woos Germany with safety of funds, economic reforms, educated workforce, others. And at the downstrip, we have Osun Assembly, CJ battle over misconduct allegation, protesters at court. Presidency tackles Atiku over claim on court verdicts. Subsidy removal takes monthly federation account inflow to 1 trillion naira. Retirement directive unsettles adamant police officers. And impeachment appeal court rejects Ondo Assembly's fast track request. Some of the stories you find on the front page of the Nation newspaper. And to the Leadership newspaper now. 3 months after hardship lingers, the states defend 180 billion naira palliatives. And another story here, bandits kill policeman, abduct 15 others in Zamfara. Kanu Agog as Governor Yusuf commissions project. All right, those are some of the stories you find on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. Kemi.
Next is First News. Well, the big story there is captioned economic crisis amidst alleged controversial spendings by state government. This story has been developing since the weekend, and now First News is talking about what it calls Sanwo-Olu's multi-million naira spendings on alleged frivolities, raising eyebrows, and it also lists out some of the controversial spendings, including a 24.5 million naira for the Lagos Commissioner of Police residence, a renovation that it says happened 3 weeks to the 2023 general election. Of course, there's been a denial. We'll get to that in subsequent papers. But then other headline stories there on the front page of First News include the declaration of Boakai as winner of the Liberia presidential election. That's on the front page. And on debt crisis, the CSO seeks relief for Nigeria as well as 10 ECOWAS countries. There's an alarm raised by Lagos Judge Hakeem Oshodi, who is saying and telling people to stop dropping charms in his courtroom, saying this, your property doesn't work again. Stop dropping charms in my courtroom. Subsidy removal, FG records more than 1 trillion naira monthly revenue inflow. That's from Minister of Finance Wale Edun. And on the one-party dictatorship claims of Atiku Abubakar, well, the presidency has a response for him saying, stop your blackmail. There's a step-by-step guide to applying for Ogun State's 1 billion naira grant for small businesses. You can check that out as well. Protesters storm PDP headquarters, demand National Working Committee members' resignation. And former President Buhari is still in the news. Now he's quoted as saying Nigerians too impressed by materialism. Democracy was forced on Africa, says former President Obasanjo. That's it for First News. On Nigerian News Direct, Lagos government replies to Hati, justifies expenditure on Blue Line vehicle purchases, and others, argues the governor completed Blue Line despite paucity of funds. Says 2.1 billion naira vehicles approved for Chief of Staff office, not for personal use but for MDAs. And the controversial liquid fragrance purchase intended to cover 1 year period, as well as other offices, the government adds, and that church renovation was approved to preserve history and pay compensation for demolition. Ogun flags off second phase of 1 billion naira grants to MSMEs. Nimasa Nigerian Navy inaugurate Joint Committee on Blue Economy. Flooding displaces 650,000 Nigerian children in 8 years. That's from UNICEF. And Osun judiciary workers accused and battled CJ of funds embezzlement as well as alleged maltreatment. This day is next. Buhari granting his first interview since leaving office in May. He granted it on the state-run NTA. He's saying, "I did my best, not sure if expected results were achieved," admits his administration must have been hijacked, and explains why the Naira redesign policy, a controversial one at that, was introduced. And Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Falana, is also making news on the front page of This Day, saying it's dangerous for judiciary to sanction 165,000 voters for electoral officers' mistakes, and he seeks a review of judgment sacking 3 opposition governors, as we saw over the weekend, where the Court of Appeal gave judgments in this regard. In Berlin, President Tinubu pushes for investment in Nigeria's power, rail, transport sectors, tells investors highly skilled Nigerians are our country's greatest asset. And federal government says the Federation account received average 1 trillion naira monthly inflow since subsidy removal. The Punch is next. Reps probe 447 billion naira COVID-19 spending, summon 83 MDAs. That's the big story there. BRT users lament shortage of buses and long queues. On the Israel-Hamas war, women, children carry war burden. Families await hostages. Next is This Nigeria. Senate chides MDAs for running accounts like private properties. CBN postpones monetary policy committee meeting again. 9 bodies recovered from Niger boat mishap. Federal government to address global performance gap. And then we see Daily Independent, telcos bemoan profit dip amid volatile economy, lose over 5 million subscribers in 8 months. Snatching opposition mandates inimical to democracy, says Atiku Abubakar. Crisis rocks Aviation Union election as aggrieved parties threaten court action. Quickly, let's check out the final paper at this session, Business Day, that is hoarding, gorging, worsen drugs prices after GSK's exit. Hoarding, gorging, worsen drug prices after GSK's exit. Lagos spending scandal comes amid investment push. And finally, CBN delays MPC meeting again, leaves investors guessing. Veronica.
One story that made me giggle was the one where the Hots were saying stop dropping charms.
Oh, that's, yeah. It also raised eyebrows. I had to quickly read up on the story because I missed it somehow yesterday. And, well, but I'm just saying it doesn't work. Come and carry your property.
Interesting. Well, that's the much we can take on the papers this morning. Any story that interests you, just pick up the papers to find out more.